Hi, I'm Megan and welcome to my kitchen. In today's What's for Dinner video, I'll be sharing with you what meals we had this past week. Our dinners were easy to make, budget friendly, and delicious. So if you're looking for some weeknight meal ideas for your family, just keep watching. For dinner this first night, I made teriyaki salmon bowls. I really didn't follow a recipe for this. I think I saw something like on Instagram and I just kind of made my own version of it. But a quick disclaimer before I show you what I did this night. If you saw my video last week, I mentioned that Gary wasn't feeling well, and no worries, he's fine. He's feeling a lot better, and I told him, all of you that have sent your well wishes and prayers and everything, he really appreciates that. But this week, he still wasn't feeling great, and so each night what I made just kind of depended on what he was in the mood for or what he felt like eating. So you'll see some of it is smaller portions, and he will maybe eat later or differently, but just wanted to make that quick disclaimer. So let me show you what I did. First up, I took some salmon and I just cut the salmon into chunks. I marinated it in this Kinder's Japanese barbecue sauce, as well as this Kinder's Japanese barbecue seasoning. And I just allowed that to sit for maybe like 30 minutes or so while I was, prepping other things and doing dishes for dinner. I had some leftover white rice in my fridge that needs to be used up, so I'm going to use that. I've got some of the little cucumbers and matchstick carrots. I'm going to use some frozen edamame that I just pop in the microwave to take the chill off, an avocado, some sesame seeds, and then I've got this yum yum sauce for Walmart. So I took this salmon, I removed it from the marinade, I placed it into the air fryer. I cooked it at 400 degrees for about 8 minutes or so. It really just depends on, how thick you cook your salmon, or you cut your salmon rather, and how you like your salmon cooked. Now I'm ready to assemble the bowl, so I'm going to lay down some of the rice. And to warm up this rice, because like I said, it was left over, what I did was placed it in a bowl, added just a little sprinkling of water, like maybe a tablespoon, covered it in plastic wrap, popped it in the microwave for about 4 minutes. And that way your rice heats back up, but it doesn't become hard. I sliced up the avocado, so I'm going to add that. Add my edamame. Then I sliced up the cucumber, so I'm going to add my cucumber as well as the shredded carrots. And really you can add whatever veggies you like here. If you don't want to use salmon, you could do shrimp, you could do chicken. I think tofu would be really good in this. So once I've added the salmon, I'm going to sprinkle some sesame seeds over it. And then I did a drizzle of that Japanese barbecue sauce and a drizzle of the yum yum sauce. And then that was it. Those were our salmon teriyaki little bowls, and they were delicious, so fresh tasting, yummy. I didn't really feel like cooking the next night, so I dug around in the freezer to see what I could come up with. I had these chicken patties on hand, so I decided to make those. I had some hamburger buns, and then I wanted macaroni and cheese, so I'm going to make this Kraft cauliflower macaroni and cheese. For Gary, I have this Panera chicken noodle soup. You just get this in your deli section, and I'm going to heat that up for him. Now, I wanted to show you how I like to make boxed macaroni and cheese, which might sound silly. I know most of you probably already know, but I like sharing stuff like this because I know myself, watching YouTube videos over the years, I've picked up little tips and tricks, even with simple things like boxed macaroni and cheese, that I've incorporated. So maybe I do something a little differently that you want to try. Or maybe you're new to cooking and legitimately don't know how to make it, which there's nothing wrong with that. We all start somewhere. So in this pot, and this is the same pot that I boiled the macaroni, I just cooked it according to the package instructions and I drained it. I am going to add in my butter, and I also like to add in my milk. Now, I don't always make macaroni and cheese like this, to be honest. Sometimes I just kind of throw it all in the pot, but this is the way I prefer to make it. So once the butter has melted, I then add in the cheese packet and whisk that together. Once the cheese sauce is smooth, I'm going to add in my cooked drained macaroni, give it a good stir, and then here is the quote-unquote secret ingredient. I like to take a slice of American cheese, break it up, and allow that to melt. I want to say I first saw this a few years ago on Tamara's channel, Southern Wife Everyday Life. I could be wrong about that, but Ever since I saw it, I've started doing it, and I don't make boxed macaroni and cheese any other way. Even if I dump it all together in the same pot and don't like make the cheese sauce first like I did here, I always add a slice of American cheese. It makes it creamier and just adds more of a cheese flavor. So once that American cheese has melted, I personally don't add any salt at all to this. I don't add it to the water. I don't add it anywhere. I feel like it's salty enough, but I do like to add quite a bit of black pepper, and that's it. This macaroni and cheese is so creamy. For the chicken patties, I like to cook them in the air fryer. I do 400 degrees for about 8 minutes, flip them, cook them another 7 to 8 minutes or so. You just want to make sure that you cook them until they are the temperature that your package directions state. So here at the plates, on the right, I've got the chicken patty sandwiches. I just kept them really simple. I did just a very, very, very light layer of mayo, a little bit of ketchup, and then I've got the macaroni and cheese. For Gary, I did the same with his chicken patty sandwich, just very, very light layer of mayo, little tiny bit of ketchup, and then I warmed up some of that Panera chicken noodle soup for him, and that was our dinner this night. For dinner the next night, I made a couple things that I've made before on my channel, but I wanted to share them again in case you're new to my channel. I did honey mustard Ritz chicken. I'm going to start out though by making one of my sides. These are Mandy in the Makings green beans. They're one of the few ways that we actually love eating green beans. I'll of course have it linked down in the description box below for you. In this saucepan, I've got it on medium heat. I've got a couple slices of bacon that I chopped up. I'm going to cook that until the bacon is crisp. While I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and boil up these little baby gold potatoes. I just cut them in half, put them in some water, and boiled them until they're tender. Once the bacon is done, you're going to leave the bacon and the bacon grease in your pot. We're going to add in the green beans. Now, Mandy's recipe calls for canned green beans. That's what I normally use. You drain those. But I had fresh green beans on hand today. I just cut them into pieces. Once we've added the green beans, we're going to add in some chicken broth. I'm using some chicken and I'm using some water rather, and this chicken bouillon powder. Next, I'm going to add in some garlic powder as well as black pepper and salt. And I've made these so many times, I just eyeball it. But again, the recipe with measurements will be linked down below for you. After we've added in the salt, we're going to add in some brown sugar and then give this a really good stir. You're going to bring this to a boil and then reduce it to a simmer. And you'll want to simmer these for about 30 minutes or so until the green beans are just yummy and that liquid has evaporated. And these green beans are so good. All right, now for the honey mustard Ritz chicken. Ritz chicken is usually just chicken dipped in Ritz crackers that are crushed up and then baked. I like this version better, adding the honey mustard, because I just feel like the honey mustard gives it more flavor. So super, super easy dinner, simple, budget friendly. Here's how to do it. I have some chicken breasts. I slice them into like tender shapes. You can use chicken tenderloins if you'd prefer. And I'm just going to season it with some seasoned salt. You can use whatever seasonings you prefer. In this next bowl, I'm going to use some Ken's honey mustard. That's just what I've got on hand. You can use your favorite honey mustard. I think this would also be good with ranch dressing or Italian dressing. I haven't tried those, but I think it would be good. So in this last bowl here, I've got some crushed Townhouse crackers. I like to take a fork and just kind of really press the crushed up crackers onto the chicken tenders. I'm going to then place these onto parchment paper that is lining a cookie sheet, and then we're ready to bake these. So my oven was preheated to 375 degrees. Because these are chicken tenders, they're not going to take long to cook at all. I like to bread them while the oven is heating up, and then they take like maybe 18 to 20 minutes or so to bake. Now this is optional, but I do like to spray the tops with a little bit of cooking spray. It just helps the crackers get a little more brown. And this is what it looked like when they were done. Just make sure you cook these until they're at least 165 degrees internal temperature. I had some chive and onion cream cheese in my fridge that really needed to be used up, and I remembered that the Pioneer Woman's recipe for mashed potatoes uses cream cheese, so I thought, hey, I'll use that instead. So in this bowl, I've got a little bit of butter and some of that chive and onion cream cheese. I'm going to add in the potatoes. Again, I cooked these till they were tender in some salted water and then drained them really well. I like to let the potatoes sit on the butter for a couple minutes, just kind of help it melt. And then I'm going to use just a hand blender. You can mash them up with a masher. You can use a ricer, whatever way you prefer to mash your mashed potatoes. I'm adding in, like I said, a little bit of milk, and then I'm going to season them with some salt and pepper, and then that's it. And that chive and onion cream cheese gave these mashed potatoes a yummy flavor. All right, here are the plates. So we've got some of the honey mustard Ritz chicken, the mashed potatoes. I did garnish them with a little bit of dried chives, and then we've got the green beans. Delicious dinner. So the next night at dinner time, Gary wasn't hungry. He's been on antibiotics and they kind of mess with his stomach. So he was not hungry. We ended up doing a yo-yo night, or you're on your own. That's what yo-yo stands for. Some people call this fend for yourself or figure it out. It's just literally what it says. Everybody figures out what they want for dinner and makes it themselves. I had this lean cuisine panini in my freezer. This isn't the best tasting thing in the world. It's not the worst tasting thing. It came in handy, this night when I didn't want to make anything just for myself. So I just cooked it in the microwave according to the package instructions. And then we had some guacamole in the fridge. I had these tortilla chips. So that was my dinner. And then Gary ate later. I didn't get a picture of what he ate, but he just had a bowl of frosted mini wheats, and that was our dinner. The next day, Gary had his appetite back and he really wanted a burger. So this is what I used for dinner this night. I've got these hamburger patties. I just got them pre-made from Kroger. I've got some sliced American cheese I'm going to add, a tomato I'm going to slice up. I've got some frozen tater tots. These are the Kroger brand. This steak and shake seasoning, some lettuce, and then I'm going to butter and toast up some hamburger buns in this skillet. Now, I didn't show me, making the hamburger patties. I think you all know how to do that. I like to just season both sides, cook them in a skillet over about medium heat until they are done to our liking. And then the last minute or so, I add a slice of American cheese. For me this night, I decided to add a little barbecue sauce on instead of cheese. For the tater tots, I cooked them in the air fryer at 400 degrees. I cooked them for, I think, like 8 or 9 minutes, and then shook the basket, cooked them another 8 or 9 minutes until they were crispy to our liking, and seasoned them with some of that same steak and shake burger seasoning. Here is a picture of Gary's plate. I just topped the burgers with some of the sliced tomato, lettuce, and then a little ketchup, mayonnaise, mustard, and pickle, and these were yummy. For dinner the next night, I tried a new recipe. It was for a Tuscan shrimp orzo. The recipe will be linked down in the description box below for you. We liked this, however, I made a goof up. It was not the recipe at all. That I didn't really care for my mix up, but again, it was my fault. So I'm going to try this again and make it the correct way, but let me show you what I did. So in this bowl, I've got some shrimp. I just bought frozen shrimp that were already peeled and deveined. I just had to pull the tail off. We're going to season them up. I just eyeballed the seasonings. The measurements are, of course, in the recipe. I'm going to drizzle the shrimp with some olive oil, and then I'm going to add some garlic powder, smoked paprika. Really, you could use just regular sweet paprika if you'd prefer to do that. I'm going to add some Italian seasoning. And then last but not least, some black pepper and salt. And like I say with everything, you're in your kitchen. You can totally use whatever seasonings you prefer. If there's one of these you don't like or you don't have on hand, just use what you do like and what you do have. I'm going to give that a really good mix and then set that aside. And I just allowed it to marinate for maybe 10 or 15 minutes while I was preparing the rest of the ingredients for dinner. In this skillet, I've got it on medium-high heat. I'm going to add in a drizzle of olive oil. When that oil is hot, I'm going to add in the shrimp. Make sure you space your shrimp out so that they, aren't steaming. And these do not take very long to cook at all. Just a couple minutes on each side, and I'm going to remove them from the skillet and then set them aside. Make sure you don't overcook your shrimps. That way they don't get rubbery. And keep in mind, we're going to add the shrimp back into the final dish and cook it for another couple minutes. So next, we're going to add the olive oil, the additional olive oil, and I did not rinse out the skillet. You've got good seasoning in here. Okay, here's where I messed up. At this point, you were supposed to add the sun-dried tomatoes. I just kind of quickly glanced and saw tomatoes and thought it was canned tomatoes, and so I added the canned tomatoes in there. I didn't prefer the canned tomatoes. I didn't prefer the texture. I didn't prefer the acidity of the canned tomatoes. It was fine, but just next time I make this, I'll just use the sun-dried tomatoes and that's it. Next, I'm adding in the orzo. I'm using whole wheat. You can use plain. And I'm going to give that a stir. Now, if I would have used the correct kind of tomatoes, I wouldn't have had all this extra moisture, so my orzo would have actually toasted. But, you know, like I said, I made the mistake. So just cook it for a couple minutes until your orzo is toasted, and then I'm going to add in the chicken broth. I'm using water and chicken bouillon powder. I'm going to give that a stir and then bring this to a boil. Once it's at a boil, I'm going to reduce it to a simmer. And you want to cook this, I mean, it depends on how you like your orzo. Remember, orzo is a pasta. It looks like rice, but it's a pasta. It depends on how you like your pasta cooked, if you like it more al dente or more tender. And I was using whole wheat, so mine took right at about 20 minutes. And if you see here, somebody got on to me last week, not in a mean way at all, but got on to me for not using my spoon rest, not moving it. And so if you see, I listened to you. I tried to remember I moved my spoon rest. But once the orzo was tender, at this point, I realized, oh crap, I was supposed to use sun-dried tomatoes. So I added those. And then we're going to add in some artichoke hearts. I'm using canned, and I found these chopped ones, which I've never seen them in the grocery store before. Maybe I just haven't looked, but it was kind of handy to have them already chopped up. So I gave that a stir and cooked that for just a couple minutes. And then I'm going to add in a big handful of spinach. I covered it with a lid and let it sit for a couple minutes, gave it a stir, and then you just want to cook this until your spinach is wilted. Now, at this point, the recipe called for heavy cream, which I did not have on hand, but I've seen where you can substitute evaporated milk for heavy cream. Now, you can't do this with like an Alfredo sauce because the evaporated milk doesn't have the fat that heavy cream does. But in something like this, it's fine. So I added in the evaporated milk, gave it a stir, and then I tasted this. I was happy with how it tasted. So we are going to add our shrimp back in. Give it a stir, and then you just want to cook this for maybe 2 minutes, not very long at all. You don't want to overcook your shrimp. You're just warming them back up, and this is what it looked like when it was done. And like I said, this was really good, but it was just something about the acidity of the canned tomatoes that kind of made it off for me. So I can't wait to make this again and leave those tomatoes out. But it was still a delicious dinner, and if you don't like shrimp or you don't want to use it, you don't have it on hand, this would be really good with chicken. Last but not least, Gary really, really wanted Chinese food. So we ordered takeout from our local restaurant. We just kind of got a little sampling of everything and kind of made like an at-home Chinese buffet, if you will. We got some sesame chicken and fried rice, crab rangoons. The sesame chicken and fried rice came with an egg roll, and then we ordered a shrimp egg roll for Gary, and then we got a pint of pork lo mein, and like I said, we just had a little bit of everything, and it was Friday night, so we kicked back. It was snowing and iced outside, and we just kicked back, ate, hung out, watched Unsolved Mysteries, the original, like, 80s version. We've been going back and binging all those. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. I hope it gave you some dinner ideas to try. If you did like it, hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. And I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.